On June 1st, 2025, we headed to our first camping trip of the summer in York County, South Carolina. So come with us as we spend time exploring what has been called the Charleston of the upstate. The next morning, we went back to a more rural area in York County near the Cherokee County border. During the Revolutionary War, Cornwallis sent Ferguson to North Carolina to subdue the backwoods men. He warned the North Carolina men to stop opposing the British or be destroyed. To make his point, he had his men abuse many of the frontier families. This wasn't wise, as the men made their way to York County, where in October they met up with the Patriots here at a little place known as Kings Mountain. Feeling invincible at the top of the mountain, Ferguson famously stated that he was untouchable on the hill. He not only felt his position was very strong, but he saw the militia as too disorganized to attack. But he ended up being wrong and didn't realize it until he and his men were surrounded. During the Battle of Kings Mountain, Patrick Ferguson was shot 8 times and then drugged by his horse. Of his Tories, 250 were killed, 163 were wounded, and 668 were captured. Of the brave patriots who fought at the Battle of Kings Mountain, I can't visit without thinking about Frederick Hambright. Frederick Hambright was a German immigrant who came to America at the age of 11. By 18, he left his father's home in Pennsylvania. He first stopped in Virginia, where he married Sarah Hardin. By 1768, they had settled near the Catawba River, close to a frontier fortification. Prior to Sarah's passing, she bore him 12 children. In 1775, Frederick Hambright was a signer of the Tryon Resolve. He also was a representative of Tryon County at the Third Provincial Congress and took part in the Rutherford Light Horse Expedition against the over-the-hills Cherokee. By 1777, Hambright joined the cause as a lieutenant colonel of the Lincoln County Regiment, locally known as the South Fork Boys. Some books state that during this time, he earned his nickname, the Terror of the Tories. Prior to the Battle of Kings Mountain, Frederick is believed to have participated at Stone's Ferry and the Battle of Ramseur Mill. But it is at Kings Mountain where he earned a reputation as a hero. During the Battle of Kings Mountain, after Colonel William Graham didn't show and Colonel Chronicle was killed, Hambright took command of the men. During the assault, Hambright was severely wounded from a musket ball shot through his thigh. Although bleeding badly, he continued to fight. Hambright's comrades were impressed with his bravery, and a fellow soldier, Samuel Moore, later put it, "He knew he was wounded, but was not sick or faint from the loss of blood. He said he could still ride very well, and therefore deemed it his duty to fight till the battle was over." In addition, as Hambright's troops neared the top of the mountain, he urged his boys on in his thick German accent, saying, "Huzzah, my brave boys! Fight on for a few minutes more and the battle will be over." After the battle, Hambright was taken to a nearby log cabin for treatment. He survived, but had to resign from service due to his injury. Hambright ended up marrying Mary Dover, a young neighbor lady who had come to care for him. After their marriage, Mary and Frederick welcomed 10 children. Other brave men who fought during the Battle of Kings Mountain include John Harding Handbright, Lieutenant John Handbright, John Carpenter, 10 Davis men, 6 Kennedy men, Robert Knox and Samuel Knox, John and James McGill, Captain David McKissick, John and 2 Joseph Wells, and Davy Crockett's father, John Crockett. Next, we drove to Hickory Grove. Hickory Grove traces its roots to a settlement in the late 1600s that grew around a river and several creeks on good farming land. The town was established in 1888 and named after the hickory trees there that signaled suitable soil for crops. Now, houses that still stand on Wiley Avenue and Smith Ford Street in Hickory Grove reflect the town's history. During the Civil War, John T. Scoggins of Hickory Grove joined and went to Cold Harbor, but was sent home when it was discovered that he was only 15 years old. The next year, Scoggins re-enlisted. Unfortunately, during the war, he was stricken with pneumonia and was at the hospital in Greensboro when Lee surrendered. Unfortunately, John Scoggins never made his way back home to the Kings Mountain area, and after the war he was so weak that he only lived 10 more years. In 1889, around the time that Hickory Grove was incorporated into a town, the Moorheads moved from Wilkinsville to the area to open a general store. While in Hickory Grove, the family also got heavily into egg production, selling 15,000 eggs a year. By 1891, a Mrs. Castle moved to Hickory Grove and settled on Wiley Avenue. Next, a Mr. Martin moved to Peachtree Avenue near a policeman named Broom. During the 1900s, Professor W.T. Slaughter purchased a beautiful home from J.H. Martin, and after adding on to it, he opened it as a hotel. The hotel was known for hosting many parties and dances, though it also had the reputation of being a place where fights and even shootings occurred. Notably, the professor was also the state manager of Woodsmen of the World and a trustee at Hickory Grove High School. In one of the high school's catalogs, it describes Hickory Grove as a modest village surrounded by hills and beautiful fields and forests, a place of pure water and an inviting climate. Some of the businesses advertised in that catalog included the business of Moss and Jones, who not only shod horses but also repaired vehicles. In addition, there was an advertisement for the area's sorghum molasses king, W.S. Wilkerson. By 1904, a journalist passing through Hickory Grove remarked on it being a lovely place with a main street made of brick and framed shops. It had a lovely avenue with trees and garden houses, 4 churches, and a 2-story school. During this time, a Dr. T.S.R. Ward came to practice medicine in the town, and the McGill family operated a livestock company selling mules. In addition, the McGill family were also beekeepers and eventually owned a business downtown. In 1910, N.M. McDill was not only a cashier manager at the Bank of Hickory Grove, but also operated an insurance business. By 1921, a tragedy occurred 3 miles away and involved William A. Ramsey. Ramsey was out baling hay with his young son when he and one of his mules were struck by lightning and instantly died. The incident left William's 7 children fatherless. Sometime in 1933, Whiteside store that once stood in Hickory Grove was robbed by a man named Dover. Dover ended up being an ideal prisoner and even got janitor privileges. But by 1934, Dover and 6 other inmates escaped the jail, and for 4 years, Dover was able to elude police, but eventually was caught out of state under the alias Lewis Johnson. Sometime in 1937, Dover ended up back at his parents' home in York. At discovering this, Constable Frank Ramsey went to arrest him, but after arriving at the home, was hit in the head with a rock thrown by Dover. Shortly after, Dover was arrested, taken to the York County Jail. This time, while incarcerated, he was given the job of working on the Darnell farm near Hickory Grove, pulling up stumps. Unfortunately for Dover, he was seriously injured while working with a team of mules and died shortly after at the age of only 35. While near Hickory Grove, we stopped at the Unity Academy marker. Near this site in 1823, Reverend Aaron Williams established the Unity Academy, the first public school in what would later become the town of Hickory Grove. Williams conducted this school on a grade and high school level, teaching mathematics, grammar, geography, languages, and science. Its earliest board of trustees consisted of Reverend Cyrus Johnston, Reverend Hugh Quinn, A. Thompson Esquire, Benjamin Morgan, John S. Moore, and David Byers. The marker was erected by the Broad River Basin Historic Society in memory of William Beatty Wilkerson, Jr., 1918
The land
to
on which
2000.
the town of Hickory Grove developed was granted to John McKinney in 1771 by George III of England. The Hickory Grove Post Office was in operation as early as 1831, and a free public school was located here by 1851. In 1888, the Charleston, Cincinnati, and Chicago Railroad completed its line through Hickory Grove, connecting this area to coastal South Carolina. At the time of its incorporation in 1888, Hickory Grove was 1 square mile in size. Its center began at the intersection of York Street and Wiley Avenue. J.N. McDill was the first intendant, and Dr. J.W. Allison, J.W. Castle, T.M. Wisnett, and J.H. Wiley were wardens. The Associate Reformed Presbyterian Church maintained its orphanage here from 1897 to 1905. Hickory Grove School, a 2-story brick building constructed in 1916 on Peach Street, was built for grades 1 through 11. In 1928, Hickory Grove High School, a 1-story brick building, was constructed at the corner of Wiley Avenue and Wilkerson Street. The high school and elementary school closed in 1975 and 1998, respectively. The 1916 elementary school was demolished in 1998. The 1928 high school was demolished in 1990. The 1939 vocational building, lunchroom, and bus shed are still standing. In 2010, the vocational building housed a magistrate office and a lunchroom house, a senior citizen, and community center.
Because it was so hot, we decided to get inside for a little while and explore the Museum of York County. This museum is a natural history museum located in Rock Hill, South Carolina. The museum focuses on the natural history of the Carolina Piedmont, featuring exhibits of local wildlife, Ice Age mammals, and global connections. Located alongside the Settlemyre Planetarium and the Vernon Grant Gallery. Prior to Clover's founding, the area had the Bethel and Brittany communities. These communities were home to most of the population in the northern York district. While in the area, of course, we stopped at the Bethel Presbyterian Church.
This church was founded in 1764 by Reverend William Richardson, who organized Scots-Irish settlers in this area from both South Carolina and North Carolina into a congregation incorporated in 1786 as the Presbyterian Church of Bethel Congregation. It grew steadily and built its third church building year in 1809. Bethel later became the mother church of 8 area Presbyterian churches. The present church was described as large and tasteful. When it was dedicated in 1873, it was listed in the National Registry of Historic Places in 1980. The earliest marked grave in the cemetery is from 1774. The cemetery contains graves of veterans of all American wars, including several patriots who fought at the nearby Battle of Kings Mountain on October 7th, 1780.
Notably, even in 1764, Bethel was considered part of North Carolina, making it one of the oldest churches in the region. There is a total of 52 men buried in the cemetery who fought during the American Revolution, such as Colonel Samuel Watson, Colonel Thomas Neal, Colonel Joseph Howe, Captain William Davis, Captain Peter Clinton, David Jackson, Dr. William McLean, and pioneer Henry Craig. 21 of the Revolutionary War soldiers buried at Bethel fought at the Battle of Kings Mountain. That being said, the most popular Revolutionary War grave here at Bethel is that of Colonel William Hill, whose furnace was previously mentioned as it was burned during the war. Besides being an ironmaster and soldier, William Hill was also a Presbyterian Church elder, county judge, South Carolina legislator, state commissioner, and author. Will was born in Ireland to John Hill and his wife, Rachel Hill, who immigrated from Ulster, Ireland, to Chanceford Township in York County, Pennsylvania. The mass immigration of Ulster Scots from Ireland from the port of Belfast and Derry was due to the 1740 climactic event called the Great Frost, which caused crop failure, starvation, and mass migration. Unfortunately, in 1757, in York County, Pennsylvania, in an orphan's court, William Hill and Elizabeth Hill were listed as minor orphans. Within this court document, a guardian was chosen. By 1765, William Hill was working in the town of York in York County, Pennsylvania, as a cutler, or someone who makes knives from metal. His knowledge learned here likely formed his interest in his life's work as an ironmaster. On March 27th of 1765, William Hill was named guardian to his sister in the York County Orphans Court. According to the Hill Bible, William was married to Jane McCall around 1764, and together they eventually had 6 children. By 1768, William and Jane McCall Hill migrated down the Great Wagon Road through the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia and into the Piedmont of South Carolina, where they settled west of the Catawba River on land that became present-day York County, then part of the Camden District of South Carolina. William Hill then applied for numerous land grants, establishing his home on Allison's Creek in the northeast part of the county, which also includes what was to be called Nanny's Mountain, named after his wife, which was the location of a huge iron mine used for its raw material and production of iron products. By 1777, with the encouragement of John Rutledge, President of the lower house of the South Carolina legislature and later Governor of South Carolina, William Hill received a £1,000 loan from the South Carolina government to build an iron furnace. Notably, Hill did have a co-partner named Isaac Haynes of Charleston. Hill's Ironworks was fully operational in production of war materials like guns, cannonballs, and cannons for the war effort and the defense of Charleston. His ironworks supplied 106 tons of war material for South Carolina's defense. Due to this war production of Hill's ironworks on Allison's Creek, the British force under Captain Christian Hook burned the ironworks, mill, building, Colonel Hill's home, and plundered the property. During the war, Colonel William Hill participated in the following battles: the July 12, 1780 Battle of Hook's Defeat, the July 30th, 1780 Battle of Rocky Mount, where he disguised himself, August 6th, 1780 Battle of Hanging Rock, where he was wounded, the August 18th, 1780 Battle of Fishing Creek. Later, he fought at the November 9th, 1780 Battle of Fish Dam Ford, the November 20th, 1780 Battle of the Blackstocks, the January 17th, 1781 Battle of Cowpens, the July 8th through 10th, 1781 Battle of Orangeburg, the July 17th, 1781 Battle at Quimby Bridge, and the July 17th, 1781 Battle of Shudbrick Plantation. Colonel Hill was instrumental in the prisoner exchange between General Sumter and General Cornwallis at Bigger's Ferry on the Catawba, which occurred on February 23, 1781. After the Revolution, Colonel William Hill and other Patriot leaders took political office. Most people in the Piedmont preferred a life without the interference of the federal government. Those who voiced that opinion in York were William Hill, Andrew Lowe, Robert Patton, Samuel Watson, James Martin, James Hunt, Samuel Lowry, John McCall, Adam Meek, Adam Smith, and Reverend Francis Cumming, the pastor at Bethel Presbyterian, the latter of which shocked everyone when, at the last moment, he changed his vote to that of a Federalist. So outraged were those in the church that they tried to have him removed, and in doing so stopped tithing, effectively starving him out, and he was forced to resign and moved to Georgia. While meat, ciders, alcohol, tobacco, pottery, iron, and native slaves had at one time been an important export for the area, by 1790, because of the cotton gin, the chief product being exported from York was like that of everywhere else in the state, cotton, most of which went to Charleston by way of the rivers, which could be hazardous. In fact, the following year, the traveling Methodist Francis Ashbury documented his troubles in navigating the swollen rivers while ministering here to the whites and natives. He stated, "If you decide to take a road, you also have to worry about thieves, especially at places like Love's Ford, where the wild pea plants block visibility." One example of misfortune befalling a traveler happened to James Meek. Meek had been a patriot who had come to York with his widowed mother from Pennsylvania after the war. He was traveling home, but when his horse arrived without him, a search party went out. He was found near some driftwood, and it appeared that he had been robbed and then drowned by his attackers. Another story involved Captain James Henry, who was born in York. During those days, trips by road were often taken with other families to ensure safety, as the trip to Charleston could take more than a month. On such trips, people would usually gather around a campfire to tell jokes, stories, and drink. So it wasn't uncommon for fights to break out. During his travels, one day Henry had become so frustrated at what had occurred that he decided that the next man he encountered, he would fight. Unfortunately, it was an elderly man, but the man's son happily obliged. Afterwards, Big Henry said, "I never learned his name, but I'll never forget the thrashing I got that day." Eventually, prominent men like the Revolutionary War hero and former governor of North Carolina, William Ransom Davis, along with Joel Poinsett and Robert Mills, worked to bring York, Chester, and Lancaster out of the backwoods by improvement programs, though large improvements didn't begin until 1819. Like Union County and Spartanburg County, York County was once known for having the largest trees. Eventually, they were all cut down, but one of the largest remained until the 1930s in the Bethany community. It was 33 feet in circumference. After it was cut down, another large tree near Bethany became known for its size and was often visited by picnickers, school trips, and lovebirds wanting to leave their initials. That tree lasted until 1952. Prior to the town of Clover being established, while the Low Country had planters, meaning you had to own 100 acres and at least 20 slaves, the upcountry had what was known as yeoman farmers, who had much less land and usually only owned up to 4 slaves. Regardless, almost every citizen supported secession, even if they didn't own slaves, because no one wanted to submit to an outside government that could impose laws and tariffs. That being said, slavery was for sure an issue. During my research, I read that prior to the war, people would gather to watch men drill and were filled with pride. However, that changed when deployment occurred and the younger citizens realized what war meant. Every day a paper would come from Columbia to Yorksville. People would be waiting on the news. Miss Julius Little recounts in 1925 as a small barefoot girl watching Mr. Quinn read the news that his son had passed. She also told of how things got ever and ever worse as the people of York County had to look for substitutions and eventually had to even dye their own clothes and make their own shoes, as no one had money and everyone lived off of cornmeal. Some of the warriors of the Lost Cause include William Beatty Smith of Jasper's Light Infantry. His father was Major Miles Smith, and his grandfather was James Smith, who gave 6 acres to Beersheba Presbyterian Church. William had received a formal education, worked on his father's farm near Clover, and enlisted with his brother, future Clover merchant John Smith. Before the war ended, William was a captain, and after the war, he married and became a farmer. He eventually opened a mercantile store where the eventual town of Clover emerged, but is most remembered as having the best beard in the county. William fathered a few children and lived to be 68 before being laid to rest at Woodside Cemetery. Another story that occurred here during the Civil War took place on the Christmas of 1862 as the war was raging in Virginia. 70-year-old William Tommy Hardwick set out to find his two sons in Virginia. Amazingly, he did and distributed socks, clothes, and hickory nuts from home. Unfortunately, that would be the last time the two Hardwick boys would see their father, Tommy. Soon afterwards, Tommy contracted smallpox. His widow, Mildred, was devastated, even more so that shortly after her husband's death, she also lost her two sons. The town officially began around the site of a 5,000-gallon water tank constructed to serve the steam engines of the Chester and Lenore Narrow Gauge Railroad. According to local legend, excessive water spilling on the ground caused patches of clovers to spring up. Railroad workers began referring to the town as Clover Patch. The town was chartered on December 24th of 1887. Of course, like other areas in York County, Clover eventually had the Clover Presbyterian Church. The Clover Presbyterian Church was founded in 1881 and a post office opened in 1884, solidifying the town's infrastructure. By 1890, Smith launched the Clover Spinning Mill, marking the start of the Clover's textile boom. Additional mills, such as the Hawthorne in 1917 and Hampshire in 1923, followed, propelling the population to nearly 3,000 by the 1930s. These industries defined Clover as a thriving textile community with remnants still visible along Main Street today. By 1912, a tornado devastated Clover by destroying much of the Clover Spinning Mills complex. 20th century brought challenges and advancements to Clover. The cotton mills operated well into the post-World War II era, providing jobs and stability. However, the original railroad line was abandoned in the early 1980s, shifting the town's economic focus. A major milestone came in 1985 with the construction of the nearby Catawba nuclear plant by Duke Energy, which bolstered the local economy and the Clover School District. The plant served as a major source of property tax revenue for York County, with approximately 75% of its taxes allocated directly to the Clover School District, providing millions annually to support educational operations, infrastructure, and programs. Reaching a population of 6,671 people as of the 2020 census. In addition, while Clover, South Carolina, isn't known for grand, publicly tourable historic mansions like Charleston, it boasts charming older homes and a rich local history, with examples like the old Cloverleaf Farm. Today, Clover blends its historic legacy with modern growth. Attractions like the Clover Downtown Historic District offers a glimpse into the past, while events and local businesses continue to thrive, supported by the town of Clover and the Greater Clover Chamber of Commerce. Whether you're strolling Main Street, exploring nearby Henry's Knob, one of the world's largest kainite mines, or attending community festivals, Clover's history comes alive in every corner.